Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning,
Hi,
Deputy
Senator.
Secretary Campbell. It's so good to see you again. I've really appreciated that over the course of our relationship, we've been able to be quite candid with one another,
Yes.
particularly as I reflect on when I think the United States has missed its mark
Yeah.
on its past engagement. So I want to ask you today to think critically about where we can improve our efforts. And I think we can look outside, outside the Indo-Pacific to make these assessments when it comes to our strategic competition with the PRC. But I also think there are cases within the Indo-Pacific.
Yeah.
For example, I just got back from Laos and Vietnam, where I was the first U.S. Senator to visit Laos in 15 years. And I found a country hungry for U.S. presence. And I found a country littered with debt trap infrastructure projects that they will never be able to pay back. Crumbling roads that were built with borrowed money to the tunes of billions of dollars that are not generating any revenue. And yet I saw so many opportunities. Something as simple as I went out and visited an ADB, an Asian Development Bank project, where they help local villages next to major natural resource tourist sites build a whole place where people can go swimming in these beautiful lagoons, and they get over 500 visitors a day at each of these sites. And in talking with them, they said, when we have problems with tourists in the lagoons getting into swimming trouble and they're about to drown, it's the American tourists who are pulling them out, because American tourists have lifeguard training, many of them, and first aid training. And it would be great if somebody could provide us with lifeguard training, and we would pay our young people and they wouldn't have to move to the big cities or leave the country. And something as simple as that, brainstorming with our ambassador to try to find funding for simple U.S. lifeguard training, which they would love to have. Low cost, high impact, really good projects that could happen. And so I think, in order for the United States to be seen as a credible, reliable partner and provide an alternate choice to the PRC, where we don't have a strong track record of a security relationship, we need to at least be showing up, right? Things like this lifeguard training or some of this. But I also think that there was an opportunity for capacity building in public health in particular. So can you tell us something about how the U.S. approach with partner nations in the public health space and other areas like this can build trust and enhance our presence in the region? Beyond, we rely too much on security and defense, I think.
So first of all, Senator, let me just thank you. You have been a voice that has consistently asked for more engagement of the United States in ASEAN and specific countries. And I would also say I'm grateful that you raise cases of small countries like Laos and Cambodia. There's a tendency sometimes to think that these countries are just in the Chinese orbit, and that's that. But the truth is that when we set up the first ASEAN summit, which you were a key backer of 2 years ago, when we brought all the ASEAN leaders to Washington, it was difficult to get agreement among all these nations to come. The two nations that were quietly some of the strongest voices in having that happen were Laos and Cambodia, because they too want options. They want a deeper relationship. I love the idea of lifeguards. Anything that you think we could do that, high impact, I'm all ears for. I'm going to go back to the building right now and see what's possible. I will say this, Senator, our greatest thing in Southeast Asia is that we engage ASEAN as an institution as well as individual countries. I think we've done very well in Vietnam. We've done very well in the Philippines. I think we've engaged effectively in Indonesia, but I think we could do more in a number of countries: Malaysia, Thailand, Laos, and Cambodia. And I want to thank you. You in particular have pushed us to do more. I think we have a few things that we'd like to do in this arena as we approach the end of the Biden administration. So I completely accept the proposition and am always looking to do more for our friends and partners in Southeast Asia.
Wonderful. I am almost out of time. I would love to be able to meet with you and talk with you a little bit about some of these initiatives.
Done.
Later. Thank you. Also, the Pacific Island countries. I'm glad that Congress finally funded and renewed the COFAS agreement. Thank goodness.
You got to give yourselves a bigger pat on the back than that. Like, let's be clear. In a period of unbelievable division, one thing got through. The COFA agreement, after 20 years, a negotiation was really hard, was passed by the Senate and the House. A huge, huge achievement. Made a big impression on our countries in the Pacific. So you should not dismiss that. That was a big act of legislative leadership and helped us enormously. We are doing much better in the Pacific than we were 3 years ago, and that's largely because of the urging and support of this committee.
An expansion of more of our consular activities in the region would be really helpful.
So
you,
look,
you touched on it earlier.
We're doing this. Senator Risch and his team have urged us. Look, the restrictions on new buildings and how to build stuff is hard and difficult. We've sought exceptions. We are actually working with other like-minded countries that we can put our diplomats at their facilities. We need to do more in the Pacific. This is like we have moral, historic, strategic reasons. We are doing more. We are better. We're working with our allies and partners. Ultimately, we've got to be able to represent ourselves. These island nations are proud. They've been with us for decades. They vote with us. We should not take them for granted.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.